Hello, this is Daniel Hell. This is another little video I'm going to make. I'm going for an evening stroll, just past 7 p.m. in Germany, and heading towards the sun, by the way. This is a video on self-love, short video on self-love, and this can be for men just as much as women. You'll find that men will very much steer away from this concept of self-love. And I use this with executives, with people in very responsible jobs, and individuals that you really wouldn't imagine who would be entertaining the thought of self-love at all. And it creates change, and because if we're not loving ourselves and we're expecting it from someone else all of the time, we're always going to feel empty or blank. Something's going to be missing, something's not going to be quite right. And if you can start doing this, you're going to experience a shift and a change. Okay, so self-love. If we look at love just in its entirety, and we're looking at something like, I'm at a crossroads here, what a metaphor. Where am I going to go? Could go up there, could go there, could go down here. Let's go down here. Okay, so, so there was a book that I was bought by a Christian friend, actually, when I was exploring Christianity all those years ago. I now see myself as spiritual, and I don't belong to any religion whatsoever, and I don't follow any practice. I love the Enneagram, and I see that in itself. Oh, it's going this way up. I see the Enneagram in itself as a tool for transformation and to get to the spiritual essence of who I am, to go beyond my ego, and I do that for myself. And I did it for myself way before I did it with clients. In fact, I only really introduced the Enneagram after sessions with clients, after I'd done EFT and NLP, hypnosis and other life coaching stuff, just out of the principle of, would you be interested to know your personality? And eventually I started to do that with clients. And it became part of sessions, 15 minutes at the end of the session, or then it was half an hour of the session, and then some sessions were completely about Enneagram mentoring, I started to call it, because that's exactly what I was doing. It wasn't coaching, I was mentoring somebody on their psychology. It's getting a bit shaky, Daniel, hold it, can you? Let's go with this one. Okay, we're going to go over here. So I'm slightly deviating, but actually that was an act of self-love, because I really wanted to learn to master much more of my psychology, or let's say not even master more of it. I wanted to master my psychology, and that's entirely what it does. You begin to really understand your own neurosis, and there's something that I say in the forthcoming book that's going to come out, that your liberation is in your opposite tendency, meaning that your own particular egoic pattern we're all addicted to, and when you can know that and consciously know that, like Carl Jung said, enlightenment is making light of the dark, I believe he said. And so thus you go to your opposite tendency, and hey ho, liberation. Is it as easy as that? Yes. Is it as straightforward as that? Not really. So there's a process that we go through when we're transforming and evolving. But in religious terms, they would call that conversion. In psychological terms, you call it transformation. So both are the same thing, and they're both about being in your opposite tendency and being in your essence, effectively. So I think I'm going to get to the end of here and turn back, because this looks like a big main road, but it's still nice to walk here. No. Okay, so that was the Enneagram. Journeying with that was self-development. So one thing I'm going to talk about is the 5 love languages. And there's a Christian friend who gave me the book. It's actually when my dad was dying. I think it was 2001. So she might have given it to me that year, or it might have been the year after, so that would have been 2002. So for 15, 16 years, I've known that book, and it's amazing. And I use it with clients to help them to better their relationships. Let's go this way. To better their relationships. But it's also useful for self-love because it teaches you what love is. And love can be shown in 5 ways. It sounds absolutely ridiculous. There's got to be more than 5 ways, surely. But the 5 ways being that there are, I remember this alphabetically, acts of service, doing things for others. G, gifts, buying things for people. Or it could be something as simple as finding a child finding something on the floor. And, Daddy, I've got you a leaf. And, I don't know, it might be a very special leaf or a stone. And that parent goes and puts that in the drawer. And 15 years later they discover it and there's the stone that they gave me all those years ago. So it doesn't have to be, an expensive gift at all. Gifts, acts of service gifts. Next one is P, physical touch. That's non-sexual. That means the ability to go up to somebody and to hug them, just to touch them, just to be in the vicinity of them, but applying touch, a loving touch. Children love to be touched, but so do adults, and so do people in relationships. So that's a really, really powerful one. The other one, Q, quality time. So this is time where you set aside for each other in order to be able to make the relationship good. It's just, hey, we've got time together. I was speaking to somebody the other day, and she was saying her aunt and uncle, they've been together for 30 years, 40 years, and they still make time for one another on certain evenings because that's their time together, so that's their quality time. Relationships that aren't doing so well often can be, which I see, the guy is just working so hard and he's providing for his family through acts of service and providing money through gifts in many ways, holidays, cars, all that kind of stuff. But there's no quality time there, and the wife, the partner, is just feeling pretty spent, and how can, he doesn't love me, and he's there going, what do you mean? Look what I'm giving, look what I'm doing. I'm absolutely knackered, all the time, and I'm working all the hours that God sends, and then I'm absolutely exhausted. So quality time, that's what she wants. She doesn't know that really, and she's trying to tell him, but he doesn't really get it because he's kind of caught in a quandary himself. And then when they start making time for one another, or he starts making time for her, and she starts acknowledging that his way of showing love is that, they can start to have some compromise, and at least they can start to sort of really love one another. The last one being words of affirmation, affirming how you feel towards one another. If you can't say I love you, and the other person really needs to hear I love you, the relationship's really going to struggle. But it's not just about saying I love you, it's all different types of other things. So it's like saying, I'm really grateful for all that you do for me, or I'm always going to be here for you, or I appreciate all that you do for me, and I appreciate you sharing with me. Just affirming how you feel, and often some of the most basic things that people need that don't cost anything can make a relationship. So my primary love language is words of affirmation, and it's I love hearing those things. I never heard it as a child. In fact, it made me understand my childhood, the 5 love languages, and as much as my parents did acts of service and they did gifts every now and again. I got a lot of second-hand clothes from my brother and things, and even though we came from a middle-class family, I didn't have a lot at all. And I certainly didn't have words of affirmation. I certainly wasn't touched, and I didn't really have much quality time. So I survived on my parents doing lots of things for me, and then when I felt I worked out in therapy for 4 years, I said it was misloved. I worked out that actually my parents really did love me, but that was through their conditioning and through their life. They were only able to do that because that's what they'd had themselves. They hadn't had the word, they hadn't had the touch, and they were locked and trapped in their own ego and their own fears and their own issues. So let's turn this all around to self-love. acts of service, doing things for yourself. Doing things for yourself. You know, how often is it that, you know, you go, oh, I've been meaning to do that and all the rest, and you become your best friend, you become your twin, I'm going to do that, and you do it for yourself. It's an act of self-love, to go out of your way to do something for yourself. If you spend all this time doing it for others, you're doing it for yourself. Number 2, gifts, buying yourself things. It doesn't have to be expensive, it might be, but it might be something as simple as buying yourself a gym pass. You know, you don't feel that you deserved it, or buying yourself a massage, or buying yourself an aromatherapy session, or acupuncture, or something. Number 3, physical touch, hugging yourself, or just being, you know, in your own body and feeling comfortable in it. Plenty of people won't feel comfortable in it. You know, I hate this body. Start, you know, touching it in a nice way. You know, being comfortable in the physicality of yourself. It's a huge one. But if you can hug yourself, or, you know, I used to start hugging myself like not 15 years ago. Probably did 15 years ago. But I started doing it in a big way, in deep healing, with some childhood stuff. We're talking maybe 7-8 years ago, and it was wonderful. It was really transformative. And I remember the words that came out were the words that I never heard as a child, which was, I love you and I'll always be here for you. And those are the words that I'd always wanted, really, as a child, and I started to say it to myself. So those are the words that you start saying to yourself. And we're also wanting quality time, and I'm doing this, although I'm making a coaching video, most of the time that I'm going to be out and about is walking, and that's quality time with me, just being with me, and